subcommittee from the ranking member of the subcommittee, Mr. McHenry, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Bernanke, thank you both, Secretary Geithner, Chairman Bernanke, for your service to our government. You've certainly both served in some challenging times, not just in the last 3 years, but over the longer run as well. Chairman Bernanke, I just want to ask about your legal authority, the Fed's legal authority. So the Fed can purchase sovereign debt of the United States and has. Does the Fed have legal authority to purchase other countries' sovereign debt?
It does for the purposes of reserve holdings, and we currently hold a small amount, relatively small amount of debt of very high quality. I think it's France, Germany, and Japan. But we are not engaging in purchasing debt of troubled countries.
But that could be considered?
We are not considering it.
Okay.
Congress made clear in earlier discussions, I mean some decades ago when this issue came up, that the purpose of this authority was to maintain foreign exchange reserves. I don't think that it was the intent of Congress that we get involved in sovereign debt issues, and it's not our intent to do so.
Well, beyond that, does the Fed accept as collateral for foreign debt, sovereign debt of foreign countries?
Well, some of the debt we simply own as part of our foreign exchange reserves. In other cases, we have various kinds of short-term repurchase agreements and other kinds of arrangements where we do take collateral for a short period. And again, we are making sure that we have sufficient haircuts and so on to make sure that we're comfortable with the safety of those short-term arrangements.
Okay. Thank you. Secretary Geithner, I've got a few questions about the International Monetary Fund. And within Treasury, you have a designee who serves on the 24-member executive committee of the IMF. In terms of the actions taken with the recent IMF loan to Greece, were you involved in that process? Was that a discussion you were engaged in?
Absolutely. We're the largest shareholder in the IMF, and so we pay a lot of attention to any decision, any meaningful decision the IMF makes in that context. Okay.
Now, looking at that, is the Treasury? I know you've mentioned this before, but I just want to raise the issue again. Is the Treasury? Are you considering additional contributions to the special IMF European Bailout Fund?
No, we're not. Our judgment is that the IMF already has $400 billion of available resources it can use, if necessary, to help support the needs of its members. Europe, of course, has very substantial financial capacity to put behind their strategy to resolve this crisis, and therefore we do not see the case for coming to Congress and asking for more authority in this context.
Okay. Now, is the Treasury considering being involved in the IMF's NAB, the new arrangement to borrow facility?
Well, we are in that already. Congress has authorized us to participate in that. So yes, when the IMF draws on the new arrangements to borrow, which is like a supplemental pool of resources, then yes, like when the IMF draws on its quota resources, we do participate in those drawings. And as I said, we have 60 years of experience with how the IMF acquits itself in that context, and the record supports our judgment that there's very substantial, strong financial safeguards that protect the interests of the U.S. taxpayers in that context.
Under Dodd-Frank, and I know you've been supportive of this, but a number of provisions in there, one in particular dealing with the IMF. When our designee, your designee, and our country's designee to the IMF engages in a decision to the IMF to loan money to a country that has a greater than 100% debt to GDP ratio, they have to present Congress with the understanding of why they made this decision and what the credit risk is. Is that being done?
Absolutely. Of course, there's a rich history, a long history of congressional mandates on the votes we can cast in the institution. That's one of the more recent ones, and we'll meet the test of that provision.
And it's a 30-day provision, so we would expect that within the next 3 or 4 weeks in front of Congress, the decision-making there.
And the way that provision is structured, as you said, in some circumstances where the existing level of debt in the country is high, there's a higher burden on all of us to make sure that the reforms that come with this assistance give us a reasonable prospect that it's going to be improving the path to sustainability.
Well, we look forward to that report. Thank you.
I thank the gentleman. Just to